In a time when modern TV adaptations are struggling, scrambling for attention, throwing out lore, logic, and love for their source material in favor of cheap drama and buzzwords, The Sandman does something rare. It respects the story, it respects its audience, and most of all, it respects the dream. Adapted from Neil Gaiman's iconic comic series, The Sandman is more than a fantasy show. It's an experience, an ethereal, gothic, and deeply emotional journey into the nature of stories, mortality, and what it means to be truly human, even when you're not. It's a show about gods, monsters, nightmares, and the realm of sleep, and yet somehow it's also one of the most human stories ever brought to the screen. And in that space, between brilliance and tragedy, lies the heartbreak. Because The Sandman, despite all its ambition and excellence, feels rushed. Not in its storytelling. No, the storytelling is intricate, poetic, and patient when it matters. But in its existence, it ends too soon. Not with a whimper, but with the melancholic sigh of a story that had so much more to give. But maybe that's the point. In an era of bloated streaming content that fades from memory minutes after watching, The Sandman lingers. It haunts you in the best way possible. It's a show that leaves its mark, like a vivid dream you can't stop thinking about. So today, let's talk about why The Sandman, flawed, beautiful, and maybe gone too soon, is one of the most meaningful TV shows of the decade. If you want to understand why The Sandman succeeds where so many other adaptations fall apart, you don't have to look far. It's not about flashy action scenes or overhyped cameos. It's about character, world, mood, and most of all, commitment to telling a story that stays true. Let's start with the heart of it all. Dream, the god of sleep. At the core of The Sandman is Morpheus, also known as Dream. And Tom Sturridge doesn't play him, he becomes him. There's something haunting about Sturridge's performance. Not in the theatrical, villainous sense, but in how controlled and deliberate he is. Dream is a god who speaks like time has no meaning. Every word he says feels like it's etched in stone. Because it is. That's how Neil Gaiman described him. A voice like writing in stone. And that's exactly what Sturridge gives us. From the moment he appears, you believe this is a being that has existed for centuries. His voice never rises, yet it commands. His presence isn't loud, but it's unshakable. The way he stands, the way he moves, his gaze, it's all calculated. And yet, beneath that cold, statuesque exterior, there's a tragic warmth. A depth of pain and loneliness that leaks through in the smallest glances. Sturridge doesn't act like Dream. He is Dream. And it might just be one of the best performances in any fantasy series ever made. But Dream isn't alone. The strength of The Sandman lies in its ensemble, a mythic family known as the Endless, each representing a concept rather than a person. Death, desire, despair, delirium, destiny, and destruction. Let's talk about Death. Played with quiet grace by Kirby Howell-Baptiste, she isn't the Grim Reaper stereotype. She's kind, warm, gentle. Her episode, The Sound of Her Wings, is arguably the emotional peak of the entire series. Watching her guide souls from life to afterlife, whether it's an old man playing violin or a baby still in its crib, hits with a power most shows wouldn't dare to approach. Then there's Desire. Mason Alexander Park's take on the character is seductive, slippery, and full of mischief. Every time Desire appears, you feel like you're watching someone who enjoys playing God and isn't afraid to pull the strings of family to do it. Even secondary characters like Johanna Constantine, Jenna Coleman, Lucifer Morningstar, Gwendolyn Christie, and the immortal Hob Gadling, Ferdinand Kingsley, leave an impact. Every actor fits their role like a glove. Even the one-episode arcs feel like fully realized lives. That's rare. Narrative structure. Season 1 of The Sandman embraced an anthology format, with each episode feeling like its own mythic fable, self-contained yet spiritually connected. You had dream quests, moral dilemmas, tragic romances, and surreal detours, all orbiting around Dream's return and restoration. It was poetic and fragmented, like flipping through a beautifully illustrated graphic novel. But Season 2 evolves that structure, while individual stories still carry their own tone and focus, like the haunting tale of Orpheus, the political power play over Hell's Key, or the journey to find destruction. They're no longer disconnected threads. Instead, they weave together to serve a larger, more emotionally cohesive arc, the slow unraveling and transformation of Dream himself. By the end, what began as a story about restoring balance becomes one about surrendering control, accepting change, and ultimately dying to be reborn. The anthology becomes a eulogy, and then a genesis. It's no longer just stories in a dream. It's a dream coming to an end, and that makes every chapter hit harder. Visual and world building. From the very first scene, the Sandman makes it clear this is not your average fantasy world. The production quality is insane. The dreaming is rendered with the same surreal beauty you'd expect from a dream. Hell feels like a haunted cathedral, painted in despair. The waking world feels grounded, yet always a step away from the supernatural. A show with soul. This is where we get blunt. In an age where fantasy and comic adaptations are being pumped out monthly, most of them soulless, committee-written, safe productions, The Sandman feels like it actually had something to say. Where other shows worry about trending hashtags, Sandman worries about meaning. This show talks about life, death, dreams, power, identity, change, responsibility. It dares to be poetic. It dares to have long, quiet scenes where two people just talk. It dares to be weird, sad, patient. That's why people remember it. Where other shows are forgotten 5 minutes after the credits roll, The Sandman sticks. It lives in your head. It matters. And you can feel that every frame of this show was crafted with love for the story, for the characters, and for the audience. As The Sandman reaches its end, it delivers something most shows never dare to give us: real closure. After 2 seasons of myth, memory, and transformation, Dream, Morpheus, the eternal and unchanging king of the dreaming, meets his end. Not in a battle, not at the hands of a villain, but by choice, by acceptance. He dies because he must change, and change for someone like him means death. But his death isn't a tragedy. It's the ultimate act of growth. Morpheus spends both seasons wrestling with who he is, a being of rules and structure, defined by duty, but plagued by loneliness and regret. And when the moment comes to truly evolve, to leave behind his flaws, his guilt, his past, he lets go, quietly, fully. And from that ending, a new dream is born. This new dream isn't a copy of the old. They are gentler, more empathetic, a reflection of everything Morpheus learned across his long arc. In this rebirth, the cycle continues, but with hope, with softness, with possibility. That's what makes The Sandman feel complete in a way most shows never do. It doesn't stretch endlessly. It doesn't chase more seasons just to keep going. It tells a full story, with a beginning, a change, and a true ending. Yes, we could have had more. There's so much rich material left from the comics, and yet what we got feels right. It feels like a story that mattered, that meant something. It wasn't about spectacle or ratings or trend chasing. It was about purpose, transformation, and the deep, often painful beauty of letting go. So many shows are forgotten the moment the credits roll, but The Sandman stays. It lingers in your thoughts like a vivid dream. It makes you think about life, death, change, identity, love, and regret, not as plot devices, but as truths. It gave us gods who feel more human than people. It gave us fantasy that dared to be emotional instead of loud. And it gave us an ending that actually matters. Morpheus is gone, but his legacy lives on in the stories, the characters, and in us, the dreamers who followed him. Thanks for watching. Hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more videos on the shows that actually deserve to be remembered.